Million to power millionaire. Good morning, everybody. Namaskar. This is Suraj Singh speaking from Bharat, India on this day, April 22, 2022, 422 Thursday. नमस्कार, मैं सूरज सिंह सिविल इंजीनियर भारत से बोल रहा हूँ। 28 अप्रैल 2022 सुबह के 4:22। बृहस्पतिवार पिछला वीडियो ब्रेक हो गया. लास्ट वीडियो वॉज ब्रोकन. क्वालिटी, इट हैज़ नो वॉइस, इट हैज़ नो वन. लेट मी सी हाउ इट गोज ऑन. आई वॉज टॉकिंग अबाउट क्वालिटी. मैं क्वालिटी के बारे में बात कर रहा था. टॉक तो यही है हमारा, रिक्वायरमेंट, क्वालिटी रिक्वायरमेंट, रियल क्वालिटी रिक्वायरमेंट, हिंदी इंग्लिश कंटिन्यूशन. आई विल टॉक इन बोथ coordination and engineering only way, projects, works, designs, contracts, reliable engineers, power of communication, concrete specifications. I talked about quality and every day I talk about it. हर रोज़ मैं क्वालिटी के बारे में बात करता हूँ, गुणवत्ता के बारे में बात करता हूँ, कोऑर्डिनेशन के बारे में बात करता हूँ और संचार के बारे में बात करता हूँ. बात करने से कुछ नहीं होता, कोई इम्प्रूवमेंट मैं नहीं देख रहा हूँ. आई एम नॉट फाइंडिंग एनी इम्प्रूवमेंट इन दिस. द पीपल आर नॉट हैप्पी टू वर्क इन क्वालिटी लेवल एंड टू वर्क इन कोऑर्डिनेशन. कोऑर्डिनेशन इज़ वेरी पुअर. समतल कह सकते हैं आप. कोई भी काम करने के लिए वट एवर यू वांट टू डू, यू हैव टू बी कोऑर्डिनेट, यू हैव टू बी कोऑर्डिनेटिंग विद अदर्स. हमको तालमेल बैठाना पड़ता है, बैठाना चाहिए, लेकिन ऐसा नहीं हो रहा है. इट इज़ नॉट हैपनिंग. एंड यू कैन सी हेयर इस स्पेसिफिकेशंस वी हैव टू गो थ्रू. कंक्रीट, कंक्रीट क्या है, कैसे होती है, हमको भी समझना चाहिए, और वो कैसे काम करती है, क्या. Doing that, I will just refresh last para, and that was, so transportation systems, lightweight aggregate. We talked of, when we talked of control of moisture content of lightweight aggregate, and also we talked of something, mixing, concrete mix कैसे हो, क्या हो, ये भी बहुत ज़रूरी है. और उससे पहले ये मेरी ईमेल आईडी आपके सामने, suraj_engineer@yahoo.co. मेरी ईमेल आईडी आपको पता है, फिर बता रहा हूँ आपको. suraj_engineer@yahoo.co.uk. You know it very well, even then I'm just trying to refresh what's my email ID and what is my, you can say, designation here, and this is what I got. And then you may say that this is my arbitration engineer certificate, arbitration engineer. This is my, professional engineer certificate, international professional engineer certificate, and here is this file. I'll now continue mixing, and let me close this file, arbitration engineer. Now I close this and we'll talk of concrete. हम बात करते हैं concrete के बारे में. मैंने पहले भी आपसे काफ़ी बात की इसके बारे में, और I talked a lot about this, and let us talk it now again. In a way, it should be. Let me see if signals continue. I'm not sure. Last video was about just 20 minutes. I think it's bad video, but what to do? We have to do something along on that. And that's only way. Mixings. I'm talking about concrete. मैं concrete के बारे में बात कर रहा हूँ. Sequence of charging materials into mixers shall be determined considering efficiency of mixing and water absorption by aggregate during mixing, so as to ensure that lightweight aggregate concrete meets the required performance. ये बात हो रही है परफॉर्मेंस के लाइटवेट एग्रीगेट की. मिक्सिंग की सीक्वेंस क्या हो, कैसे हो, एंड दैट्स इम्पोर्टेंट आइटम. सीक्वेंस ऑफ चार्जिंग मटेरियल्स, किस मटेरियल को, जो भी हमारा रोड़ी है या सैंड है या डस्ट है, पानी है, और भी चीज़ें हैं, वो किस तरह से मिक्सर में डाला जाए. हम लाइट वेट काउंटर की बात करें. सीक्वेंस ऑफ चार्जिंग मटेरियल्स इनटू मिक्सर शैल बी डिटरमाइंड कंसीडरिंग एफिशिएंसी ऑफ मिक्सिंग. हम किस सीक्वेंस में इसको डालें, इससे कितनी एफिशिएंसी हमें मिलेगी, वो देखना होता है. एंड वाटर एब्जॉर्प्शन बाय एग्रीगेट ड्यूरिंग मिक्सिंग, जो लाइट वेट एग्रीगेट कितना पानी पिएगा, वो भी देखना होता है. so as to ensure that lightweight aggregate concrete meets required performance. परफॉर्मेंस तो मिलनी चाहिए. Sequence of charging materials into mixer shall be determined considering efficiency of mixing and water absorption by aggregate during mixing, so as to ensure that lightweight aggregate concrete meets required performance. Duration of mixing should in principle be determined through tests. Sequence of introducing lightweight aggregate concrete materials into mixer has a large effect on mixing efficiency, degree of water absorption of aggregate in mixer and height. Like हम किस सीक्वेंस में उन मटेरियल्स को मिक्सर में डालें, इससे फ़र्क पड़ता है कंक्रीट के ऊपर, मिक्सिंग एफिशिएंसी के ऊपर, हमें चाहिए कि हम एक सही प्रकार से उस सभी मटेरियल्स को मिक्स होना है जिन्होंने डाले हैं मिक्सर में. Sequence of introducing lightweight aggregate concrete materials into mixer has a large effect on mixing efficiency, degree of water सूखे aggregate हल्के वाले. When using dry lightweight aggregate, the high water absorption capacity materials in mixer absorb a considerable amount of water, causing variation in quality of concrete, such as slump or strength. Therefore, care must be exercised in respect to use. As mixing efficiency of lightweight aggregate concrete differs greatly depending on type of aggregate, consistency of concrete, type of mixer, capacity of mixer, and like required mixing time is specified and determined mainly by tests. Method of tests for variability of constituents in freshly mixed concrete. Standard mixing time shall be not less than 1 minute in case of forced mixing type mixer and not less than 2 minutes in case of tilting type mixer after all materials have been introduced into mixer. When a gravity type mixer is used, mixing of lightweight aggregate concrete becomes ineffective compared with ordinary concrete depending on type of mixer. Therefore, minimum mixing time may be extended when tests are not performed. Minimum mixing time may be extended when tests are not performed. Its method of use are adequate and mixing performance can be confirmed by tests. Mixing time shall be same as in case of ordinary concrete. In case a small tilting type mixer at construction site, because concrete may adhere to inner wall of mixer, lowering mixing efficiency, it is suggested that sequence of introducing materials mixing time should be determined by tests. Now transportation within कंस्ट्रक्शन साइट. कंक्रीट को हम ट्रांसपोर्ट कैसे करें कंस्ट्रक्शन साइट के अंदर, मीन्स जहाँ पर कंक्रीट हमें साइट पर दी है वो आगे कैसे पहुँचाएँ जहाँ कंक्रीट डालनी है, ये क्वेश्चन है. ट्रांसपोर्टेशन विद इन कंस्ट्रक्शन साइट के अंदर कंक्रीट की ट्रांसपोर्टेशन एक जगह से जहाँ से हमने कंक्रीट रिसीव की ट्रांसफर मिक्सर से की या जिससे भी की और वहाँ से उसको पंप द्वारा या क्रेन द्वारा कैसे ले जाया जाए जिस जगह पर वो डालनी है. When lightweight aggregate concrete is transported using concrete pumps, it should be superplasticized concrete or concrete using high-range water-reducing air and draining agents as standard. For use of lightweight aggregate having large water absorption, water content of aggregate should be reduced and buckets should be used for transporting concrete to ensure frost resistance. It is possible to transport lightweight aggregate concrete by a concrete pump when concrete of slump ranging from 80 to 120 mm is superplasticized so that slump is increased to about 180 mm. Lightweight aggregate concrete in which high-range water-reducing air and draining agent is added. Lightweight concrete in which high-range water-reducing air and draining agent is added at mixing may also be used for pumping. However, use of lightweight aggregate with insufficient pre-wetting may cause blockage in conveying pipe because of increasing frictional resistance of concrete in pipe due to large amount of water absorption by aggregate under high pressure. It says, however, use of lightweight aggregate with insufficient pre-wetting, no pre-wetting it means, or less pre-wetting, may cause blockage in conveying pipe. अगर हमने उसको पहले वेट नहीं किया, गीला उसको पानी नहीं लगाया पहले, तो पाइप के अंदर ब्लॉक कर सकते हैं क्योंकि जो पानी नहीं लगाया है उससे वो पानी उसमें स्टिफ हो सकता है, वेक्स पाइप के अंदर फ्रिक्शनल रेजिस्टेंस बढ़ सकता है. However, use of lightweight aggregate with insufficient pre-wetting may cause blockage in conveying pipe because of increasing frictional resistance of concrete in pipe due to large amount of water absorption by aggregate under high pressure. Self-compacting concrete may be used with careful attention to mixture proportions so that it doesn't cause segregation of lightweight aggregate. In this case, we have to study high fluidity concrete. There remains air voids. एयर वाइड्स वहाँ होते हैं, एयर वाइड्स आप जानते हैं, एयर वाइड्स जहाँ कंक्रीट नहीं पहुँची एयर वाइड्स रहेगा. देयर रिमेन्स एयर वाइड्स इन लाइट वेट एग्रीगेट नॉट absorbing water after pre-wetting. When pumping concrete, slump should be set slightly high and discharge should be reduced to prevent pressure in pipe from increasing. In case when a concrete pump is used for transportation of lightweight aggregate concrete, recommendations we have to see about concrete with high range water reducer with air entering effect. Then specifications for self-compacting concrete and specifications for concrete using concrete pump. Lightweight aggregate concrete with pre-wetted aggregate shows less frost resistance. Lightweight aggregate concrete with pre-wetted aggregate shows less frost resistance. In cases where there is no problem, there exists no problem on absorption of aggregates during mixing and placement for construction with lightweight aggregate concrete subject to freeze-thaw cycles, water content of aggregate should be reduced and buckets may be used for transporting concrete to ensure frost resistance. Placing and compaction concrete को कैसे place करें और उसकी vibration या compaction कैसे करें. Concrete shall be placed taking into account floating up of lightweight aggregate and using methods that ensure least segregation. Concrete shall be placed taking into account lightweight, taking into account floating up of lightweight aggregate and using methods that ensure least segregation. When internal vibrator for lightweight aggregate concrete is used, an appropriate method shall be selected with due consideration of thickness of each compacted layer, duration of vibration, spacing, interval between vibrated points. When internal vibrator for lightweight aggregate concrete is used, an appropriate method shall be selected with due consideration of thickness of each compacted layer, duration of vibration, spacing, interval between vibrated points. Segregation of lightweight aggregate concrete occurs because coarse aggregate tend to float and more mortar tend to sediment, which is reverse tendency to that of normal weight concrete. Segregation of lightweight aggregate concrete occurs because coarse aggregate tend to float and mortar tends to sediment, which is reverse tendency to that of normal weight concrete. When consolidating lightweight aggregate concrete using an internal vibrator, effective consolidation range is smaller than that for normal weight concrete. And tendency of concrete to extend to corners of formwork and around reinforcing bars by dead weight is weak. Therefore, concrete shall be consolidated thoroughly by making insertion intervals of vibrator shorter and duration of vibration slightly longer. However, care must be exercised during vibration or coarse aggregate may tend to float. ये जो लाइटवेट एग्रीगेट है, लाइटवेट कंक्रीट है, इसमें थोड़ी प्रॉब्लम आती है डालने के बाद कॉम्पैक्शन की, क्योंकि होता क्या है कि लाइटवेट एग्रीगेट ऊपर आ सकते हैं, मसाला नीचे जा सकता है. एक तो ये बात है. दूसरी जब हम कॉम्पैक्शन लगाते हैं, इसकी कॉम्पैक्टर वाइब्रेटर लगाते हैं तो ज़्यादा लगाना पड़ेगा और वाइब्रेटर की जो नोजल की स्पेसिंग है ज़्यादा कम करनी पड़ेगी ताकि, और कुछ समय ज़्यादा भी लगाना पड़ेगा ताकि सही तरह से कॉम्पैक्शन हो जाए. When consolidating lightweight aggregate concrete using an internal vibrator, effective consolidation range is smaller than that for normal weight concrete. Consolidation जल्दी नहीं होती है इसकी, and tendency of concrete to extend to corners of formwork and around reinforcing bars by dead weight of its own is weak. सरिये के पूरा पहुंचना चारों तरफ सर के गोल धारे में और कॉर्नर्स में शटरिंग के पहुंचने में थोड़ी दिक्कत आएगी, वो हम सोच रहे हैं यहाँ पे. तो हम कह सकते हैं effective consolidation range is smaller than that for normal weight concrete, and tendency of concrete to extend to corners of formwork and around reinforcing bars by dead weight is weak. Therefore, concrete shall be consolidated thoroughly by making insertion intervals of vibrator shorter and duration of vibration slightly longer. However, care must be exercised. During vibration, a coarse aggregate may tend to float. Surface finishing. Surface finishing, what to do, how to do, that's also important point. When finishing surface of concrete, floated coarse aggregate shall be pushed back into concrete. Question is that surface finishing. We are going to finish this concrete surface. How it shall be done? That's a question mark है. कैसे करें इसको, ही एक बात चल रही है. When finishing surface of concrete, floated coarse aggregate shall be pushed back into concrete. तो हल्के वाले कोर्स एग्रीगेट या पत्थर हैं, हल्के वाले छोटे स्मॉल साइज के पत्थर हैं, वो पीछे हट जाएंगे. जब फिनिश करेंगे इस क्या करें? As may be cases, as there may be cases where lightweight coarse aggregate floats, coarse aggregates float to surface, becoming subject to deterioration due to weather condition and mechanical action. Concrete should generally be finished in such a way that floated coarse aggregates are pushed back into mortar. उसको इस तरह से चलाएं फिनिश करने के लिए कि वो एग्रीगेट वापस जाएं मोर्टार में, सरफेस पे ना आए. As there may be cases where lightweight coarse aggregates float to surface, becoming subject of deterioration due to weather conditions and mechanical action, concrete should generally be finished in such a way that floated coarse aggregates are pushed back into mortar. In this case, care must be exercised. Care must be exercised not to increase bleeding significantly as a result of excessive finishing operation. To finish surfaces smoothly, it is suggested that refinishing should be performed after an adequate time has elapsed. When lightweight aggregate concrete is used in a floor slab, micro cracking tends to occur in tortoise shell pattern 30 minutes to 1 hour after finishing. Therefore, it is necessary to remove such micro cracks by lightly striking using a damper and like about 1 hour after initial surface finishing. When excess bleeding water is generated after placing concrete in winter, it is recommended to remove bleeding water properly and surface should be finished in such a way as mentioned above. Inspection. इंस्पेक्शन फॉर एक्सेप्टेंस ऑफ लाइट वेट एग्रीगेट। हमें इंस्पेक्शन करना है एग्रीगेट का जो हल्के वाले हैं, कैसे करें? इसमें क्या है कि आइटम क्वालिटी देखें इसकी, वे टू सी क्वालिटी, आइटम रिलेटेड टू क्वालिटी एंड मॉइस्चर कंटेंट दोनों। इसमें है अबाउट क्वालिटी, कंफर्मेशन बेस्ड ऑन टेस्ट रिजल्ट्स प्रोवाइडेड बाय मैन्युफैक्चरर, हमारे पास रिजल्ट तो होंगे, और कंस्ट्रक्शन होने से पहले वी हैव टू सी इट बिफोर कंस्ट्रक्शन स्टार्ट्स। सेम वे ये मॉइस्चर कंटेंट है, हम एक दिन में एक बात को देख लें कि इस रेंज में है कि नहीं। एक्सेप्टिंग इंजीनियर कंडक्टिंग एक्सेप्टेंस टेस्ट फॉर लाइट वेट एग्रीगेट इज प्रोड्यूसर ऑफ लाइट वेट एग्रीगेट कॉन्क्रीट। Result of acceptance test shall be confirmed by owner and engineer both. It's important to exercise proper quality control of lightweight aggregate to ensure that lightweight aggregate concrete which meets required properties is manufactured and constructed. Lightweight aggregate that is prescribed as prescribed in this chapter. Lightweight aggregate for concrete for structural use. Quality control for lightweight aggregate shall be exercised by exercise for its items. Since artificial lightweight aggregate for concrete for structural use is normally controlled better than natural aggregate, data sheet of test results submitted by a production company may be used for quality control like cement. Water content of lightweight aggregate used for concrete plays important role. Water content of lightweight aggregate used for concrete plays an important role, not only for production of consistent quality of concrete, but also for transportation such as pumping and placing. Care should be exercised in case of pre-wetting because water content is likely to vary. Quality control for water content becomes important during production of concrete. Test for water content shall be carried out once per day or more, similar to the number of tests for surface saturation of aggregate. It's difficult to specify uniform standard judgment for test results on water content. However, standard of water content can be specified by considering conditions for transporting concrete in consistent quality. It can be controlled within range of plus minus 2%, for example, based on standard value. Lightweight aggregate concrete acceptance inspection for that. Accepting party or engineer shall be held responsible for conducting acceptance test for lightweight aggregate. It should be verified by tests that concrete has designated mass of unit volume when it is unloaded. Tests for mass of unit volume of concrete should be carried out in accordance with this. Mass of unit volume of concrete shall be within range specified at design stage. Mass of unit volume of concrete shall be within range specified at design stage. Difference between bulk density obtained by test and one calculated from specified mix proportion shall be less than 50 kg per meter cube. What it says? Mass of unit volume of concrete shall be within range specified at design stage. In addition, difference between bulk density obtained by test and one calculated from specified mix proportion shall be less than 50 kg per meter cube. Accepting party or engineer conducting acceptance test for lightweight aggregate concrete is owner of structure. There may be cases, however, where contractor constructing lightweight aggregate concrete has conducted tests and an engineer or owner has verified test results. Mass of unit volume of lightweight aggregate concrete does not vary greatly according to degree of drying. Mass of unit weight of volume, mass of unit volume of lightweight aggregate concrete does not vary greatly according to degree of drying. Mass shall therefore be measured for fresh concrete to ensure safety. ताजी जो कंक्रीट है ना उसका मास लिया जाएगा. Density of fresh concrete is influenced by variation of water content in lightweight aggregate. According for inspection of density, a provision on difference between result obtained from field inspection and calculation based on specified mixture proportion is introduced in addition to that of that the result of inspection should fall within range used in design stage. Mass of unit weight of lightweight aggregate concrete should be calculated using following equation. UW is equal to GO 1 plus AG over 100, SO 1 plus AS over 100 plus G plus S plus C plus W kilogram per meter cube, and these are the UW's bulk density, that is where bulk density of fresh concrete based on specified mixed proportion kilogram per meter cube. GO is mass of coarse lightweight aggregate, mass of coarse lightweight aggregate over oven dry state in mixed proportion kilogram per meter cube. AG is SO. SO is here. This is SO. Mass of fine lightweight aggregate. Fine lightweight oven dry state in mixed proportion kilogram per meter cube. And this is G. That is mass of coarse normal aggregate. Mass of coarse normal aggregate saturated surface dry state in mixed proportion kilogram per meter cube. And S is mass of fine normal aggregate saturated surface dry state in mixed proportion kilogram per meter cube, and C is cement content in mixed proportion kilogram per meter cube, and W is water content in mixed proportion kilogram per meter cube, and these are all. Then AG is moisture content of coarse lightweight aggregate to be used in percentage, and AS also is there, moisture content of fine lightweight aggregate to be used. Inspections for other parameters than mass of unit volume of lightweight aggregate concrete should be conducted in accordance with chapter materials of construction. Now we go to concrete using continuous fiber reinforced materials. Continuous fiber reinforced materials, CFRM. This is also something very important, and we have to understand facts of this. That's what it says. And before that, so let's go and see how does it work. We have to see. This is concrete using This chapter specifies standards or essential matters particularly required for construction of concrete using continuous fiber reinforcing material. जो एक तरह की reinforcement ही है, आप कह सकते हैं, वैसे reinforcement नहीं है, लेकिन एक तरह की reinforcement. In case of pre-stressed concrete using CFRM as tendons, in case of pre-stressed concrete using CFRM as tendons, shall be referred now. This chapter presents matters required for construction when applying concrete using CFRM, that is continuous fiber reinforced material. Continuous fiber reinforced materials. This chapter presents matters required for construction when applying concrete using concrete fiber reinforced material to a new structure. For continuous fiber reinforcing materials, continuous fibers are hardened with a binder into a bar shape as substitute for reinforcing iron bar, into a bar or standard shape as a substitute for pre-stressing steel member, and into a sheet shape. Later is not discussed in this chapter because it is used mainly for repair or retrofit. That is, or it says substitute for pre-stressing steel member and into a sheet shape. Later the sheet shape is not discussed in this chapter because it's mainly meant for repair and retrofit. Concrete using CFRM contains fiber reinforcing material. Presented in this chapter is either of reinforced concrete structure in which CFRM bar sheet continuous fiber consolidated with binders are used in place of steel bars under CFRM. CFRM reinforcements are with steel bars, or pre-stressed concrete structure in which CFRM are used as tendons, CFRM tendons in place of or with pre-stressing steel. So सी आप समझ गए होंगे CFRM एक तरह की reinforcement ही है जो काम आती है कंक्रीट में, और ये बार बनाए जा सकते हैं इसके फाइबर के, और ये एक तरह का वर्क है आप समझाने के लिए. अभी यूज़ इतना मेरे हिसाब से नहीं हो रहा है. 5 types of fibers are used as CFRM. 5 तरह के 5 types of fibers are used for CFRM. कार्बन फाइबर आप जानते होंगे, कार्बन फाइबर, एरामिड फाइबर, कार्बन फाइबर, एरामिड फाइबर, ग्लास फाइबर सुना होगा आपने, विनाइलॉन फाइबर, एंड कम्बिनेशन देयर ऑफ कार्बन एरामिड, ग्लास nylon fiber and combination of each other. They come in 5 shapes: rod, sarya, strand, braid, grid or rectangle. For better, for fiber binder matrix, epoxy or vinyl ester type is used. Binder is epoxy. So what it says, 5 तरह के फाइबर होते हैं CFRM में, continuous fiber reinforcing material. 5 types of fibers are used. 5 types of fibers used for CFRM: carbon fiber, aramid fiber, glass fiber, vinyl non-fiber and combination thereof. They come in 5 shapes: rods, strand, braid, grid or rectangle. For fiber binder matrix, epoxy or vinyl ester type is used. For members made of concrete using CFRM, examination of corrosion of CFRM reinforcement due to environmental action such as carbonation and chloride-induced deterioration can be eliminated because CFRM are generally highly resistant to corrosion. ये कहते हैं हम जब CFRM यूज़ करेंगे तो शायद जंग लगने का खतरा इतना नहीं होगा जो सरिये जो स्टील का होता है उससे होता है, क्योंकि इसमें रेजिस्टेंस ज़्यादा होता है. इसमें सरिये वाला जो स्टील होता है, कार्बन स्टील, इसमें रेजिस्टेंस कम होता है. फॉर मेंबर्स मेड ऑफ कंक्रीट यूजिंग CFRM, examination of corrosion of continuous fiber reinforcing material, reinforcements due to environmental action such as carbonation and chloride-induced deterioration can be eliminated because CFRM are generally highly resistant to corrosion. Continuous fiber reinforcing materials CFRM are non-magnetic and fit for concrete structures or members that need be non-magnetic. What is not mentioned in this chapter shall be described in draft of design of exhibits. All right. Pre-stressed concrete with CFRM should be referred regarding exactly same item as in ordinary pre-stressed concrete of PC grout. General. When constructing concrete CFRM and methods for storing and assembling CFRM and for constructing concrete shall be determined under guidance of professional engineers to meet designed designated performance requirements. Generally, CFRM are subject to surface damage. CFRM are subject to surface damage because fiber resin is generally a synthetic one. A deep scratch of material by a sharp edge of steel member will reduce its load performing remarkably. Especially if CFRM are used as tendons, a careless error at construction is greatly anticipated to result in serious accidents. जरा से भी उस पर एरर हो जाए टेंडन पे, CFRM के पे, तो उससे काफ़ी नुकसान हो सकता है. In addition, CFRM may lose their quality if left to high temperature. Quality high temperature में ख़राब हो सकती है. CFRM may lose quality if these are left in high temperature. Ultraviolet ray, CFRM, ultraviolet ray and chemical environment. Various matters should be considered when constructing concrete using CFRM. When constructing concrete using CFRM, method should be established for storing and assembling. बताया जाना चाहिए उसमें मेथड में कि इसको हम कैसे स्टोर करेंगे, भंडार में रखेंगे और किस तरह से बनाएंगे, जोड़ेंगे आप उसमें, असेंबल करेंगे. When constructing concrete using CFRM, method should be established for storing and assembling CFRM and for placing and curing concrete using CFRM under guidance of professional engineers with sufficient knowledge and experience so that concrete using CFRM may meet designated performance requirements. इसमें materials क्या है? What's materials? Continuous pipe reinforcing material, that's important one we know. And CFRM should comply with provisions. So how like commentaries की क्या है materials के बारे में? Specific properties for continuous fiber rods specifies properties of 5 types of fibers, namely carbon fiber, rods हमने पहले बताई, carbon fiber, aramid fiber, glass fiber, vinyl fiber and mixed fiber. It contains mechanical properties, nominal diameter and maximum dimensions for fiber types, namely rods, strands, lattices and rectangular shapes. These specifications may be used as properties due to fact that the type of fibers and volume ratio of its amount contained control mechanical properties of continuous fiber rods, assured tensile strength, Young's coefficient, elongation, relaxation, and so on are specified according to a combination of rod types and fibers used. Similarly, normal diameters and maximum dimension are specified for each combination. What are these? Standard specifies 7 methods for verifying performance of CFRM. In addition to these standards, performance of CFRM should be verified by either of methods according to purpose. Now, reinforcing steel bars. Reinforcing steel bars that you take into consideration. That is reinforcing steel bars. Reinforcing steel bars that are used with CFRM shall be fit for intended purpose of CFRM. Reinforcing steel bars that are used with CFRM. In cases where CFRM are used to enhance corrosion resistance in concrete structure, reinforcing steel bars used in conjunction should be epoxy coated. It's a point here. जब हम सरिये ये वाले लगाते हैं CFRM के और हमको corrosion resistance के लगाना है, तो जो दूसरे सरिये होंगे स्ट्रेंथ वाले स्टील के सरिये, उसको हमें एपॉक्सी के साथ लगाना पड़ेगा. In cases when CFRM are used to enhance corrosion resistance in a concrete structure, reinforcing steel bars used in conjunction with should be epoxy coated. Reinforcing bars that conform to clause materials and construction. In cases when ordinary reinforcing steel bars not specially treated for enhanced corrosion resistance are used, they should conform to clauses, materials and construction standards. In cases when ordinary reinforcing steel bars not specifically treated for enhanced corrosion resistance are used, these should contain matters and construction standards. CFRM are corrosion resistant and non-magnetic and used mainly for structures and members that need have such characteristics. CFRM may be used also because of such characteristics as lightweight, high strength and low elastic modulus. Reinforcing bars used in conjunction with CFRM must be selected in accordance with intended purpose. It should be noted that in this connection, non-magnetic reinforcing bars have also been developed in recent years. Now we'll have little considerations on this, and you have to wait a little. You can read it for time being. This is the more important one. So we can continue like this. I think you read that one. It was very important for reading. If you have gone through that, that's fine. Otherwise, we have to move now onwards. I'm sorry, little delay was there because of this reason. No issue then, no problem. You have to see. Means considering characteristics. CFRM are generally applied to structures in saline and other severe environments. From viewpoint of corrosion resistance, reinforcing bars for use in conventional CFRM should be epoxy coated reinforcing bars that conform to clause. Now, for ordinary reinforcing bars of no corrosion resistance, once conforming to requirement, steel bars for concrete reinforcement, which is described for materials in construction, shall be basically used. In recent years, stainless steel and corrosion-proof reinforcing bars have been developed. When using these reinforcing bars, including non-magnetic reinforcing bars, it is necessary to confirm performance conforming to above. Anchorage and couplers. It shall be ensured that structure and strength of anchorages and couplers is such that they do not fail below required capacity or undergo excessive deformation. It should be ensured that performance of anchorages and couplers complies with requirement. When selecting materials for anchorages and couplers, it shall be ensured that they conform to required performance. Anchorage or coupler shall be of structural and strength corresponding to or superior to anchoring of coupling system using CFRM. So we say anchorage or couplers shall be of structural and strength corresponding to or superior to anchoring or coupling system using CFRM, allowing for safety during pre-stressing work. Prevent excessive set in anchorage, etc. In this case, guaranteed capacity of anchorages or couplers and that of tendons are treated separately, because tensile strength of CFRM is evaluated totally, including influence of anchorages. But anchoring device itself cannot exhibit tensile strength of CFRM completely in many cases. This tendency is more remarkable in multi-cables. Anchoring or coupling system here refer respectively to system configured with CFRM and anchorages and CFRM and couplers. It is therefore recommended to verify performance of anchorages or couplers by test method for performance of anchorages and couplers in pre-stressed concrete using continuous fiber reinforcing materials However, this test is intended for new types or types of which adequate test data is not available. Testing may be omitted for quality assured types whose test data is given, and we have to see that. Materials used for anchorage and couplers refer to synthetic resins. Anchoring expansion. Materials used for anchorages and couplers refers to synthetic resins, anchoring, expansion agents, grouts, anchor bars, etc. These materials are used for anchoring and coupling that are most important for pre-stressed concrete structures. Materials must be confined to be stable in quality and excellent in durability. Now, construction, handling and storage of materials. What to do about that? Handling and storage of materials. CFRM should be handled carefully. For example, these should be applied with protection to prevent damage to surface. In cases when CFRM are stored outdoors, placing them directly on ground should be avoided. And they shall be suitably covered. Even cases when CFRM are stored indoors, placing them directly on floor should be avoided. ना तो इसको आप घर से बाहर कंस्ट्रक्शन एरिया से बाहर रखें, खुले में रखें क्योंकि ख़राब हो सकता है, ना ज़मीन पे रखें मिट्टी के साथ, कवर करके रखें ढंग से, और इसको अंदर भी आप रखें, इंडोर्स में भी रखें तो फर्श पे ना रखें, अवॉइड करें. इफ़ रिक्वायर्ड दिस शैल बी सुटेबली कवर्ड, कवर करके रखें आवश्यकता है. They shall be stored in a manner that they are protected against environmental factors such as high temperature, ultraviolet rays, chemicals, etc., which could impair CFRM, and also protected against being damaged or deformed. जिस तरह से हमको सरिये का, स्टील का प्रोटेक्शन करते हैं, हम कभी खुले में नहीं रखते हैं, कभी मिट्टी पे नहीं रखते हैं, उसके लिए अच्छा प्लेटफॉर्म बनाते हैं, उसको कवर करते हैं, चाहे अंदर हो या बाहर हो. इसको भी CFRM को भी हमको चाहे अंदर रखना हो, कमरे के स्टोर अंदर हो या बाहर हो खुले में, हमको इसको ग्राउंड से ऊपर रखना है, इसको कवर करके रखना है ताकि इस पर सूरज की रोशनी की एनवायरनमेंटल इफेक्ट ना पड़े, पानी का इफेक्ट ना पड़े, और केमिकल्स का इफेक्ट ना पड़े, अल्ट्रावायलेट रेस का इफेक्ट ना पड़े. ये सब देखना चाहिए, ज़रूरी है. ये एक इंटेलेक्चुअल वर्क है, इसको समझना होता है, लापरवाही से बात नहीं बनती. CFRM is likely to be subject to deep scars. निशान. CFRM is likely to be subject to deep scars when a sharp-edged tool or an acute part of steel touches their surface. कोई भी पैना औजार लग जाए इसको तो स्टील की जो सरफेस को टच कर जाए तो उसे ख़राब कर सकता है. CFRM is likely to be subject to deep scars. गहरे निशान, deep scars when a sharp-edged tool or an acute part of steel touches its surface. CFRM should therefore be handled carefully during its transport and storage, and assembly of steel bars and placement of concrete by taking such measures as protection. CFRM using glass fibers in particular should be handled carefully. CFRM using glass fibers in particular should be handled carefully because alkali intrusion through scars on surface is likely to deteriorate durability. ग्लास फाइबर वाला कंक्रीट, दूसरा नहीं जो कहा था कार्बन वाला या एडिड वाला. Placing CFRM directly on ground or on a concrete floor should be avoided even in warehouse because this may be damaged or lose their quality. Placing CFRM in a high temperature, ultraviolet ray or chemical environment should also be avoided because quality may deteriorate. In both cases, CFRM must be stored in a state free of harmful environmental condition. CFRM that are shipped in form of coils should be stored in coils. CFRM that are shipped in form of coils should be stored in coils with an increased diameter or linearly to prevent twist in CFRM uncoiled. Shaping, assembly and placing. Shaping, assembly and placing in position of CFRM tendons. CFRM shaping, assembly and placing in position of CFRM tendons, CFRM reinforcement, etc. Shaping and assembly of CFRM tendons. CFRM tendons shall be shaped and assembled in a manner that results in shape and dimensions specified in design without damaging materials. CFRM tendons found to be damaged at surface, bent, affected by exposure to high temperature or stored outside or outdoors for long periods shall not be used. Very important point. CFRM tendons found to be damaged at surface, bent, affects by exposure to high temperature CFRM tendons shall be shaped and assembled in a manner that results in shape and dimensions specified in design without damaging material. CFRM tendons found to be damaged at surface, bent, affected by exposure to high temperature or stored outdoors for long periods shall not be used. CFRM tendons should not be bent to shape. CFRM tendons expected to develop bond shall be cleaned of any oil, fat or foreign matter which may impair bond before assembly. CFRM must be processed correctly in order to achieve designed shapes and dimensions without damaging materials. These tendons must be cut, processed for anchoring or attached to anchorages by appropriate methods prescribed for each CFRM. For cutting CFRM, it is preferable to use an efficient high-speed rotary grinder which does not damage material. ग्राइंडर से काटें, ऐसे नहीं काटें, अच्छे ग्राइंडर से इसका प्रोसेस भी सही करें. CFRM मस्ट बी प्रोसेस करेक्टली जिससे इसके डिज़ाइन शेप मिल जाए, डायमेंशन सही रहें और मेटेरियल डैमेज ना हो. जो भी ये तार हैं, टेंडन्स हैं, तारों के गुच्छे हैं और एंकोरिंग है, एंकोरिंग के साथ अटैचमेंट है, ढंग से these tendons must be cut, processed for anchoring or attached to anchorages by appropriate methods prescribed for each CFRM. हम कहेंगे it is preferable to use an efficient high speed rotary grinder. ऊंची स्पीड वाला ग्राइंडर इस्तेमाल करें जो इसकी सरफेस को ख़राब ना करे. फॉर कटिंग CFRM it is preferable to use an efficient high speed rotary grinder which does not damage material. CFRM tendons which are bent or scratched on surface must not be used because tensile strength is greatly anticipated to be reduced. CFRM tendons which are bent or scratched on surface must not be used because tensile strength is greatly anticipated to be reduced. In addition, CFRM tendons which have been subjected to high temperature must not be used because thermal deterioration of resin may lower performance as binder and reduce tensile strength of tendons. Under direct sunlight, सूरज की रोशनी सीधी पड़ रही हो, under direct sunlight some kind of CFRM tendons may be deteriorated by ultraviolet rays. CFRM tendons that have been stored outdoors for long period should not be used. In general, thermosetting resins are used as binding materials. Thermosetting resins are used as binding materials for CFRM tendons. Since it is rather difficult to form such a material by bending on site in terms of both technically and quality, since it is rather difficult to form such a material by bending on site in terms of both technically and quality, bending forming of CFRM is basically avoided. Bend forming of CFRM is basically avoided. A bend forming is not avoidable. However, factory processing that does not impair the material is permitted. Since tensile strength of CFRM tendons may be reduced under influence of bend, forming an internal bending radius, it is necessary to check whether tensile strength satisfies strength required in design by an appropriate test method that reproduces actual state of use. This is very, very important paragraph. I read it again for your reference. In general, thermosetting resins are used as binding materials for CFRM tendons. Since it is rather difficult to form such a material by bending on site in terms of both technically and quality, bend forming of CFRM is basically avoided. If bend forming is not avoidable, however, factory processing that does not impair materials is permitted. Since tensile strength of CFRM tendons may be reduced under influence of bending, forming an internal bending radius, it is necessary to check whether tensile strength satisfies strength required for in design by an appropriate test method that reproduces actual state of use. Grease, paint, dirt, and other foreign material substances may disturb to develop bond between concrete or PC grout and CFRM tendons and cause tendon slippage. CFRM tendons must be used after full surface cleaning. ग्रीस होती है, पेंट होता है और धूल होती है और बाकी चीज़ें जो डिस्टर्ब कर सकती हैं बंधन को कंक्रीट के और पीसी ग्राउट के और CFR टेंडन के, उसे साफ़ करना चाहिए सरिये को, तभी लगाना चाहिए। टेंडन्स को बिल्कुल साफ़ करना चाहिए, उसके बिना उसमें नहीं लगाना चाहिए, बॉन्ड का फ़र्क पड़ जाता है। ग्रीस, पेंट, डर्ट एंड अदर फॉरेन सब्सटेंसेस may disturb to develop bond between concrete or PC grout and CFRM tendons and cause tendon slippage. CFRM tendons must be used after full surface cleaning. Shaping and assembly of CFRM reinforcement. CFRM reinforcement shall be shaped and assembled in a manner that results in shape and dimensions specified in design. Without damaging material, CFRM reinforcements found to be damaged at surface, bent except shaping, affected by exposure to high temperatures, or stored outdoors for long periods shall not be used. CFRM reinforcements shall be shaped and assembled in a manner that results in shape and dimensions specified in design without damaging material. CFRM reinforcements found to be damaged at surface, bent except shaping, affected by exposure to high temperature, or stored outdoors for long periods shall not be used. CFRM reinforcement should be bent to shape in factory. In cases when inside radius of bending CFRM reinforcement is not specified, it designs inside radius and method of bending shall be determined in a manner that ensures that tensile strength of bend to shape CFRM is not below value considered in design. CFRM reinforcement shall be cleaned of any oil, fat or foreign matter which may impair bond between assembly. CFRM reinforcement shall be placed accurately and adequately supported without damaging material to ensure that no displacement or deformation is caused by concrete casting. CFRM reinforcement shall be fixed using a method that does not damage CFRM or harm its durability. We have some commentary. We'll see how to do it if it's possible. And light actually is not available, and that is main cause. No electric. Many times light has gone today.